Hey guys, this is Glenn for GMP Custom Fabrications. I know it's been a while since I put out a video. I'll explain more on that later. Today's video is going to be replacing head gaskets on Sketchy, and just got some time-lapse stuff for you on that, a little bit of voiceover. But first off, I want to kind of give a little bit of explanation. I know I haven't posted anything in over a year. Just really been busy and had a lot of life-changing stuff going on. First off, I've rededicated my life to Christ, and what that looks like is me attending church on a regular basis, reading the Bible just about every day, and attending Bible studies. And so that takes up a lot of time, and my priorities have shifted around to where being out in the shop just really isn't a priority like it used to be. But more about that at the end of the video. But until then, just enjoy me working on Sketchy.
Yeah, I started with taking the charge pipes off, and I thought process was I'll start at the top and kind of work my way down. I go take the bonnet loose, taking the vacuum lines loose from it, just setting it to the side, then working on the linkage for the carburetor, taking it loose, fuel lines. I think kick down had to be taken off the side there, and work my way over to the coil. I could have left the coil on, but I decided it'd be better to go ahead and take it off so I could get to the bolts, take the wires loose on it, set it to the side, and go ahead and start unbolting the manifold itself. I get fuel lines out of the way and the breather, crankcase breather loose. I could have took the carburetor off and got into the manifold bolts a little bit easier, but I decided to just go ahead and leave them on. That the open end wrench wasn't too bad for getting all those bolts out. Made pretty short work of it. Pop it off there. I missed the fuel return line, but other than that, I had everything else disconnected. Go ahead and pop the bolts out of the valley pan gasket. I could have left it intact for most of it. Could help keep any crud from getting in there, but I had to stop and think about whether I wanted to do that or not. But I went and got that out, took those loose. I started working on the supply lines, all the supply lines for the turbos. Just saw that, took them loose, and then went ahead and worked on the drain side of them. Took them loose from under the turbos. Thinking in the future about maybe working a support, because right now there's nothing supporting the weight of that turbo. It's just hanging out there on the end of the manifold. And that's a lot of weight. I noticed going down the road with it today that it has a little bounce to it, so I probably need something out there to support it before I snap something off. But when I took it apart, I went ahead and left the turbos on, and but then I realized when I went to put it back together, I probably should have took them off there, because that's a lot of weight, and when it came time to put them back on, it was just too much to wrestle with, trying to hold the whole weight of the turbo and the manifold up together, so I separated them for reinstalling them. Taking the valve covers off, and put those gloves back on again, and I ended up taking them back off. Those orange gloves, I think I went and threw them in the trash. It was just hard to work with. I got some better black ones I got on there now. Just took spark plugs out, and now I'm looking at the rockers. Go ahead and take the rockers loose. And they come out easy enough. A little bit of a challenge to put them back on later, but pop all the push rods out. I don't believe there's any order to the push rods that they need to be put back in any certain order. They're all the same length. And I realized I probably needed to drain the water out before I pulled the head out, or the heads off, so that they didn't get water everywhere, which I discovered later really it helped up to a point, but it didn't do as much good as I thought it would. Still got a lot of water out of the block. and I went to take the heads off and had missed a whole row of head bolts. So I had to go back, get the bottom row. And looking at the gaskets, I really couldn't make out where, if they were blown, I don't know where I was losing it at. I didn't see anything real definite. But they were Felpro. They had been replaced before. They weren't factory. So at some point, they had been replaced. So I don't know if maybe they weren't torqued good or what the deal was here. I'm cleaning the surface up, big wire brush. Cleaning any carbon stuff out of it. Hitting the exhaust side, or the intake side and the exhaust side. Clean the top off. And then going back and used a tap to clean the threads out. Alright, torquing the heads down. And I said something wasn't important, I guess. Got the heads torqued on to spec, and it was a little bit tricky getting the rocker assembly back on there. You got to fiddle with it quite a bit, get all the push rods in order, and go back and forth till you get them all seated in, and then draw them down tight. All them on, torqued up. There probably may have been some spec or some instructions about cranking it in the middle of doing that, make sure everything seats and rotates good, and I neglected to do that, but it all seems good. Put the intake back on, reuse the valley pan. I didn't see any point in replacing it. It was still in good shape. Gasket sealer on it and all, and then snugged everything down. And let's see, put the coil back on. Fortunately, I remembered how to put the wires back on since I neglected to mark them. And there's not clear indication which is which without really looking at it. I'll put new valve cover gaskets on. Got them drawn down. Being careful not to draw them down too tight and crush them. Draw the wiring. Put the distributor back on, or distributor cap. Put the other cover on. Start putting the linkage back together. I ended up redoing the throttle cable on where it comes through the firewall, and redid my throttle, the cable pedal assembly, because it was coming through the firewall right behind the rocker cover, and I just moved it to the side. And what I skipped over there or didn't show was I actually took the wire brush to the face on the header there too, and got it all cleaned up before I put gasket sealer and the gasket on there, and then drew that down tight. I could tell that it had been leaking before because I had black all over my spark plugs where it had been blowing down on there. Get the turbo mounted back up. Once again, I feel I need to do something to support that. Since the motor's mounted solid, I could go solid off the turbo down to the frame and help support that weight of that turbo so it's not out there just bouncing around. Routing the wires for the oxygen sensor, or the air fuel gauge, same thing. Put the tubes back on in the bonnet. A little bit of a balancing act, try and get the boost tubes back on, getting them centered up just right, because they're a little bit on the short side. I have to definitely make sure I have just enough centered with the couplers there so it fits good on both sides. I noticed that my blow off valve was cocked a little bit. It's press fitted in there, so I just straightened it up. Let's see, going back over, tightening up the kick down where it was mounted at, or where it?
Okay, I know there was some parts in there that kind of got skipped over because I was having camera issues. If you got any serious questions about anything, go ahead and ask in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer anything you got. But we are now ready to start her back up, see how it does. I do need to reroute my breather. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. I just had it dumping out underneath the car, and I still think it was getting fumes up inside the car, so I don't want to do that anymore if I can help it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I need to go into the air filters so it could get sucked back into the motor, but I haven't figured out a good way to do that yet. So I also have a leaky oil pressure gauge line that I will address as soon as I start up, make sure everything's running. So here we go. And just like that, I remembered what I was doing when I got called away earlier. Putting the, hooking up the drain on the turbo on that side. And that's why I hate leaving projects and come back to them later, because I forgot where I was at on it. So now I got to clean up an oil mess. Okay, now I got it running. Everything I think is good. Topped off the fluids. Everything seems fine. So now I got to clean up my mess. So maybe I'll do one of those cool YouTube things where you snap your fingers and everything just magically disappears. Nope. Will you settle for some time lapse? Thought so. Okay, that's a wrap up video for tonight. I don't really know what else to do right now. I will shoot a video at a later time that does get into more what I was talking about earlier, and I'll tack it on here. But right now I just want to wrap this up and go in the house. So see you guys later. Okay, I know this started out as a sketchy head gasket replacement video. And I did talk a little bit about why I haven't done any videos in close to a year. And I touched on a little bit in the beginning. I didn't really want to gloss over it and just leave things as I had said. Yes, I have rededicated my life to Christ. I have started attending church regularly, as well as Bible studies throughout the week. And reading the Bible, I'm trying to do every day. And it's an important thing to me now. Just the purpose in my life was so lopsided. You know, what you saw in the videos before was my purpose in life. It was building the rat rods and being in the shop. And that's what I was allowing to define me as a person. And I know God has better, bigger things in store for me. I do believe that the talents that He's bestowed upon me to do this kind of work, the fabricating, the creativity, that there is a purpose behind it, a way that I'll be able to use these talents that he's given me in order to draw people to him. Maybe give me a platform that I can use in order to spread the gospel. And I don't know what form that's going to take. I know that Rush Limbaugh always had that phrase of talent on loan from God, and that's the attitude that I should have had all along. Is I can do this stuff. I can build rat rods, and I know how to fabricate. But without God giving me these talents, I wouldn't have them. So I need to make sure that I'm giving him proper thanks and praise. When people are complimenting me for what I've done, I need to make sure that I turn it around and say, it wasn't just me. Without the skill set that God gave me, I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. And the opportunities and being blessed with the job that I have that allows me to do stuff like this also. In the beginning it was free time, and now that I've changed up my schedule so I can go to church on a regular basis and do other things, it cuts down on my time in the shop to get stuff done. And that's, I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. Deadlines still bother me. I had this car show come up today, and I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough time to get things done, make it to it. If I didn't, I didn't. There were several car shows I've not been to this year, and I really didn't care. I was doing more important things. I was going to church. I was attending Bible studies on different nights, and that's how I'd rather spend my time. I still like going to the shop. Yeah, I still, that's still a favorite place to go and do stuff. But it's not my life anymore, where I had made it my life. It was what I lived for. When I wasn't in the shop, I was thinking about being in the shop. I was thinking about projects that I need to be working on. And it took me a while to make this transition in one aspect, but at the same time, it was, once I got refocused, it was a no-brainer. So I hope this is coming across clear. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. It just refocused my life and what's important to me in a way that makes sense to me. I still enjoy the rat rods. I still enjoy the car shows. It's just not a priority. I still get enjoyment out of people liking the work I've done, and I have to be reminded of not to be prideful about it, not to let my ego take over. And I think I had got a little bit big-headed about what I had done, and I thought I did pretty good not bringing it up in the videos and not acting that way, but my wife noticed it, and that's another thing too. I was not being a good husband. I thought that she was supportive, and she was. And initially, she was very supportive of what I was doing because she knew that it was something I loved to do. But it turned into more than that. It turned into replacing her in my life. These projects became the most important thing. When I was not at work, I was wanting to be in the shop, and that was, And then I expected her to sit beside me at the car shows, put up with me when things don't go right. That Jimmy Smooth video that I recorded a year ago, in fact, it was one of the last videos I had uploaded, that was a horrible day for me. I was crabby, I was not in a good mood, and I was not a nice person to be around, and things were bad that day. The car wasn't right, the truck overheated, I had gas leaking out all over the place, and it was not the person God meant me to be. And so I've changed my focus. I turn things over to Him whenever. I'm not good at that all the time. I still get frustrated, and I don't pray nearly as much as I should on things beforehand. But I do, I don't know, there's just a joy and a peace that comes from turning your life over like that, and I just can't describe it. It's just a change that I just wish everybody, if you don't know God and you are not a follower of Jesus Christ, just pray that you make some changes in your life to get there. If you got addiction issues, you know, that I've heard so many testimonies on people that's turned their life over in addictions where they've tried to get clean without God and just fought it time and time again. But through a good Christian-based program, they were able to kick it right off the bat. And you know, if you find yourself in that situation, you know, there's help out there for you. And you know, my issues weren't like that, but mine were issues of pride and being selfish. And I thank God every day that my bride woke me up to that and helped get me on this path. And I couldn't be happier now. So anyway, that's what I kind of touched on earlier. Anyway, this is Lynn for G&P Custom Fabrication, living the dream till the freaking phone rings. Thanks for watching. Although the phone don't ring anymore because now I have a set schedule. But I already got it printed on the shirt, so